From the culture of the American South, where roots hold stories, comes a natural deodorant inspired by generations of wisdom. Introducing Rootwork, the all-natural foundational Black American-based deodorant infused with the magic of High John the Conqueror root. Our unique blend enriched with this legendary root offers 24-hour protection, rooted in the power of nature. Embrace this deodorant that celebrates culture, history, and your well-being. Unlock the magic of Rootwork today. Experience the pure essence of nature. Visit rootworkstyle.com and make the switch to a healthier cultural choice.
Tron. Let's get Black Tron in here. And then let's get Dark Byzantine Prince. Either one of you guys, Black Tron or Dark Byzantine Prince.
Hey Tariq, obviously, I would probably classify like what you would say is like a white nationalist, but I'm very sympathetic. I actually watch your show often because I think you're hilarious and pretty intelligent and such. I just wanted to say, like, obviously, race relations in the United States don't seem to be necessarily progressing in any positive direction. Um,
Yeah,
you
because
know,
there is no such thing as progressive racism. You either have it or you don't, and we have it. But go ahead.
well, I would just like to say, it does go both ways. Within the
How?
black community, there's an immense amount of white hatred, and that's just very obvious.
No, it's not.
Well, why do I feel that way?
There is no systematic racism coming from black people because we don't have the power to implement systematic racism. The only thing that you'll get is a black person calling you a name, and that ain't racism because it doesn't affect you in a negative way because they can't back it up. You guys can back up your name calling. Y'all can punish us systematically. It doesn't go both ways at all, sir.
Well, due to whites being a larger proportion of the population, obviously there's a dynamic in which racist white people have uh, an easier time of doing bad things to black people. This much
Right.
I would
Right.
obviously say is true, sir. Um,
Right.
but I would also say, like, the gentleman before talked about like homosexuality and these sort of agendas that you often prescribe to solely like white people. But again, within the white community, within like the white Christians of the United States, this is something that's very hated on the right wing. And though it's prescribed to sort of a Jewish oligarchy that is imposing this on both of us rather than simply us doing it to you, which doesn't feel to be true. When all the media apparatuses, the central banking uh, system is controlled by Jewish people that do not share a sort of white identity as the rest of mainstream Americans. And albeit we might do racist things or treat black people badly, this I understand, but it would seem that there's like an imposition, and you can just look at the Israeli situation that America is being dragged into against its will, in which there seems to be an oligarchic nature of the Semitic Jewish elite that is imposing negative consequences on both of us, and at times even pitting us against each other.
No, because you don't have a problem working with anti-black people who happen to be Jewish. Y'all don't have a problem working with them. Y'all have a problem on how much of the goodies you get from them. In slavery, you had anti-black Jewish people, anti-black Christian people working together to oppress us. Then y'all turn around and get mad because they manage their the money a little bit better than the Anglo white supremacists. So you guys have like an argument among thieves, so to speak. So that has nothing to do with you having a camaraderie against or with us. See, that's a little con game y'all like to play. See, y'all don't have a problem with the Ben Shapiro's out here. Y'all don't have a problem with the again, the mafia. My brother just texted me a good point. The mafia, the Italian mafia, they were taught by the Jewish mafia. They taught them, and they taught them how to undermine us, black people. We were the targets. So just because y'all have little internal conflicts, that doesn't mean that you have a camaraderie with us. You basically argue on who's going to smash down on us the hardest and get all the benefits from you smashing down on us. You see?
Yeah, I would say it should go without saying that there's a large contingency of whites that will simply um, never treat black people well. And, I think, it's like there's just, you can say that it's, due to a systematic nature that, um, black people can't, be in the wrong at any point due to whites being a larger minority. And there's a systematic quality to
But
sort of treating.
just the fact that you want to focus on a black person being quote wrong, and y'all haven't done anything about the egregious white supremacist systematic system that's been maintained for the last few centuries. That's the big issue. That is the problem. So trying to find a way to blame the victim of white supremacy, um, that's just more white supremacy. It's
Well,
just
sir, I would just say like there's a huge, I would say about, half of whites in the United States are these very gay, cucked sort of people who sort of bootlick black people. I mean, that seems
who.
libtards.
There's no such thing as a libtard. The liberals don't give a shit about us, man. Don't play that game. The liberals are the main ones undermining us. That's why so many black people are looking at Trump like, damn, Trump wasn't really that bad. The white liberals are the worst. Malcolm told us that. Let's stop with that libtard. What did liberals do for black people? What have
Well,
they really done for us collectively? What have they done for us?
of course they haven't done anything, but that's because the sort of leadership is
All right, so
obvious.
you just contradicted yourself, sir. You talking about they lick boots? No, they don't do anything for
Well,
us.
let me be more concise. The oligarchic sort of elites within liberalism, they obviously don't give a shit about black people. I mean, you know that very clearly.
Right.
However,
And the non-elites don't either.
yeah, but I mean, libtards, they're over here marching BLM, BLM. Like,
Oh, that don't mean nothing.
yeah,
Them
but
doing
why are they doing it if they're so
because
racist?
because they like to play both sides of the fence. Those same white supremacist liberals who are out there marching with BLM, they're going to a courtroom and acquit a cop for killing a black person. That's why they're marching out there. They're never in the courtroom to help us, but they're out there marching. There's a gazillion white people out there marching with us. I'm like, well, damn, where were they in the courtroom? All we needed was 12 of them. But there all is a gazillion out here marching with a George Floyd shirt on. Then I realized, you know what? These same people are the ones in the courtroom. They're the ones letting the cops off. And if you look at some of these cases, many of the black people who got harmed unjustly by race soldiers, it was Democratic run cities. George Floyd, Democratic run city. With Tamir Rice, wasn't that a Democratic run city? Eric Garner, Democratic run city. Mike Brown, Democratic run city. So a lot of the harm that comes to us happens under the Democrats. So yeah, it's the same bird, two feathers on the same bird, man. So we don't play that hot potato thing where one group of white supremacists blame the other group of white supremacists. They're all white supremacists, right?
So the reason the libtards do this sort of what you call symbolic things, the
Mm-hmm.
reason that they have this quality about them is, do they really give a shit about the black community? No, they don't really give a fuck. But it's more, as you would probably concur, is like a sort of self-centered sort of behavior in which they actually have very deep senses of powerlessness and insecurity. Thus, they attach to groups in which they deem inferior to themselves. And because they deem Black people as, poorer or more inferior to themselves, for this reason, as insecure, powerless feeling people, they feel a sort of satisfaction in attaching themselves to Black movements and these sort of things because they can sort of have a vicarious power process of
So
like.
does the right wingers too. So does the right wingers. They do the exact same thing. They keep themselves in certain proximity of black people in order to basically juxtapose their whiteness. So they do the same thing. They get close enough to us to undermine us and harm us. The conservative white supremacists do the exact same thing. That's why we don't make a distinction from a liberal white supremacist or conservative white supremacist. They're all the same. So the problem is white supremacy. It's not a libtard, a Republican. It's white supremacy. That's why we don't break them up in different groups. And Dark, where's your family from Europe, by the way? Don't say Germany. Where's your family from?
So I am Norwegian.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Norwegian. But obviously Norwegians didn't. I'm sure there was Vikings that took some Black slaves or something, but we don't have like a sort of history of like chattel slavery the way Anglo-Saxons do. But I'm certainly sympathetic to
Now, where
sort of.
did your family come? Now, where did your family immigrate from? Because there wasn't a big Norwegian immigration wave, so they must have came somewhere else and immigrated.
From France, so actually.
There we go. There we go. Okay. Okay. So they immigrated from France to Canada, right?
No, to America at some point in the
Okay.
1800s.
Got it. Got it. Got it. And by the way, um, I like to ask white people this: how do you feel about the OJ trial? OJ just died. How do you feel about OJ's? Do you think he was guilty or innocent?
I mean, like, obviously, I'm like a Zoomer. I'm much younger, where this wasn't a relevant
Oh,
sort of.
okay.
But I would say, I mean, my impression is that like he probably came home to some dude plowing his wife, and he killed both of them. But maybe he
No,
didn't. Maybe I could be totally wrong. Like he
it's totally
maybe he
wrong.
totally didn't do it.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. You totally got it wrong if you don't. He didn't do it. All right. So yeah, you must not know any details of it. Yeah, but he didn't do it. He's innocent. Your white supremacist brethren just tried to pin a crime on him, which is part of white supremacist culture, pinning fake crimes on black folks. So I just wanted to see if you, yeah, and I forget that a lot of young people don't really understand the ins and outs of the OJ case.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like from like videos and stuff I've seen, he seems kind of like funny as shit and like low key kind of cool.
Hmm.
But I think I like kind of like a question because like I always thought you were like a super interesting guy. You're like the main FBA king, you know what I mean? Like
Uh, I'm not the main one. There's so many.
and Dr. Umar, Neanderthals and snow caves. I low key love you guys. You guys are hilarious.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I would say there's this perpetual issue. We have this perpetual issue in which it's a racial issue in the United States that is more pronounced really than anywhere else in the world. And you can say like, the libtards and us right wingers are the sole issue. And perhaps that is the case. But I would say like, where do you see like a sort of future going? Um, Obviously I don't really see this as like getting resolved. Like everybody's gonna sing kumbaya at the campfire and walk off into the sunset together. And I think rather that there could be actually, as America continues to decline and get worse economically and socially, and as whites become a smaller contingent of the United States, things could actually get much, much worse. So I would say, like, what sort, is there like sort of things that you would propose that are sort of realistic and tangible, as you love tangibles,
Mhm.
that can sort of alleviate sort of racial tensions and hatred and animosity within the United States, other than a sort of we're all going to sing kumbaya and be best friends, which probably is
But
not going to happen.
well, the thing is, the white supremacists, they won't stop practicing white supremacy. We're the victims of another group's behavior. And they've institutionalized anti black racism too much to let it go. And what's happening now is the universe is correcting itself with white supremacists because these little white supremacist enclaves that they've created to segregate themselves, because that's what segregation is, it's protective enclaves to protect whiteness. And these little white supremacist enclaves, the problem is the birth rates are now declining. The universe is kind of making a corrective situation. Those white supremacist birth rates are in the tank right now. And you cannot perpetuate an evil system that's based on um, melanin deficiency. That's what the thing is. And melanin is a very natural phenomenon. And you have people who are melanin deficient who created an evil system of white supremacy. And I'm not saying white people are evil, but the white supremacists are. And the universe corrects um, systematic evil behavior. When a group of people normalizes their evil, degenerate behavior, the universe will immediately correct it. That group of people will be on the decline. That happened with the Roman Empire. When Caligula and those people were so degenerate over there, they just banging everybody. They're into bestiality. Caligula over there having sex with horses. When the society became so degenerate, the universe just made a correction and said, okay, all this shit has to go. And then Europe went into a massive dark age. It was a massive restart. And the folks who got them out of that were black people. The black Moors who came in, 7-Eleven. That's why the term, thank heaven for 7-Eleven. So the thing is, black people, we've been trying to help and trying to save the white supremacists, and they've been wanting to fight us. So when we leave them to their own devices, they're going to kind of, the white supremacists are going to kind of eat themselves alive, unfortunately, because a lot of non-white supremacists will catch some, they'll catch some shrapnel from that, unfortunately. So the white supremacists, they got to get it right. You can't maintain a perpetual evil system where you just do a bunch of degenerate shit and that's your culture. You see, the universe doesn't like that. The universe is a very intelligent apparatus and it will correct certain things. And the universe is correcting things now. So I would say to you, chill out on that white supremacist stuff because um, black people, we gonna be around. We're the alpha and the omega. We were here from the beginning. We're gonna be here at the end. We're gonna be here. Um, the white supremacists is gonna have to get it right. Yeah,
Yeah, I dig, but I don't agree with certain, a few
like
things.
what?
Like,
Like what?
well, for example, there was a black portion of North Africans, but I don't think the portraits of North African rulers are they painted themselves. They weren't black. They had
The
often
Moors were black when they came up. When the Moors came to Spain in 7-Eleven,
like
they
so the culture was called the Butters, Butr. Uh, the blacks existed for sure within this culture, but uh, the ethnically, according to a lot of data, um, there was a large contingency of sort of European DNA within these peoples, and
who
then
the Moors?
well, I'm talking about the Butchers, I guess what you call them Moors, but essentially they
They weren't European.
obviously after Arabian conquest, Islamic conquest, the Arabians are obviously much darker than sort of
The Moors weren't European, sir. There's a reason why. Why do you think they called them Moors? The Moors were that was a descriptive term. Why do you think they called them Moors?
well, there are. I can post in the comments, but they have their self portraits. And
What so, sir? The portraits of most of the Moors that were in medieval times, they were black, sir.
I mean, I can post them, but it's almost arbitrary. I will admit there's a lot of black North Africans. I don't think it was just like sub-Saharan African was North Africa. That's clearly not the case.
Yeah, yeah. When the Moors came into Europe in 711, they originated. That army came out of Senegal, well, the area now known as Senegal, to Morocco, and then they crossed um, over to Gibraltar, which they called it Gibraltar at the time. So the Moors were black. Even the description, if you look up the contemporary documents like the Song of Roland, they just go on and on about how black the Moors were. They weren't just regular black. They were like jet black. They were like, these are the blackest motherfuckers we've ever seen. The only thing white is their teeth. I mean, they just went on and on about how black they were. And there was a term in Europe called black as a Moor. So they just kept emphasizing how black these people were, sir. So and the images and portraits of statues that's still over there, Saint Maurice, the statue of Saint Maurice, black man. Statues are still there. So sometimes part of white supremacist ego, you don't want to admit that it was black people who came up there and saved you from yourselves because y'all were up there and you were about to die. Y'all dying off. That Justinian plague and then the Black Plague, y'all were dying off up there. And it was black people who came up there with um, elixirs and medical supplies and things from Africa, and that saved Europe. That's why certain medicines they have certain Islamic names or Islamic prefixes, like alcohol. The word al, that's Islamic. They brought alcohol, alchemy, stuff like that. Algebra.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, I don't want to get into like an arbitrary thing where, like,
Right.
obviously, I disagree.
But you're just
And
doing that. That's just I'm just giving you history.
yeah, yeah,
Of
no, 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 no,
course you're gonna
sure.
say, I'm white and I say so and I disagree. Of course.
Yeah, like
But
yeah, sure,
but that
exactly.
doesn't
Yeah,
change the fact. That doesn't change the fact.
I'm
Y'all got
white
it.
and I say so. No, but like I'm listening to you. Like
Right,
I'm hearing you out.
right,
And
right.
um I mean, there is within like the FBA community like very ridiculous like things like white people weren't washing their ass even though we had like advanced aqueducts and like bathhouse structures in the Roman Empire. You can say
Yeah,
obviously
but
in the
Rome, yeah,
dark.
no, no, no. Y'all like to claim the Roman Empire that they fell off, and then y'all went right back to stinking. All right, and
Well,
the Roman
when an
Empire,
empire
okay,
collapses.
okay, hold on, because let's get into that Roman thing. First of all, a lot of the Roman culture came from Egyptian culture. They were learning from African people, and the original people up there in Rome were the Etruscans, who were black people. All right. So let's learn where a lot of this stuff came from. Y'all like to take credit for the Roman aqueducts and all that. When the fall of Rome happened, y'all went back to stinking. People didn't want to take baths. They thought baths were evil. They were living in barns. The kings and queens were living with chickens and horses. That's where chicken pox and all these weird animal diseases came from, sir. So yeah, let's keep it a
That's
bug. And
funny.
there's a book, or white people wrote a book called Dirt about how much y'all like wallowing in dirt up there in Europe. So you know, the reality is there. The reality is there, and not to denigrate anybody, but we just got to speak truth to power here. A lot of y'all didn't wash your ass for a long time, and the Moors, when the Moors came up there, they had to get them bathhouses going. They say, hey, we're gonna have to wash y'all. They had to teach you how to eat in four courses because they were just up there in Europe just grabbing meat and eat.
Okay, but wait, Tariq. It's like, okay, bro, but like, there were beautiful cathedrals. When you talk about the Dark Ages,
Mhm.
you're implying that, we're over here, in mud huts, stinking and shit, and like not wiping our asses, but like there's beautiful Gothic cathedrals. There's
And
majestic infrastructure.
many of
And
those cathedrals were mosques at first, especially in Spain. Many of those cathedrals were actually mosque. Look that up.
Here's the thing: the southern ones, yeah. So there are
Hmm.
Muslims currently who get very angry. And they've done touristing, and there's videos even like, look what they've done to our mosque, and it's become like a cathedral. But this was in southern Spain, and we can go back and forth. I don't know, were they black? Were they white? I think they were like mostly um, after the Arabic conquests in the 700s and such. They were mostly uh, like a mudded, mixed Arabian sort of, some blacks, whites. What I guess it's almost arbitrary, but like the point is like the Dark Ages, Europe became extremely powerful in this age in a way that sub-Saharan Africa had not, and this was before
No, no,
colonization.
no, not true. At the
Now
time,
there were like the Axiamites, and there were these,
no,
in
no,
Ethiopia and
sir,
Nubia, there were powerful African kingdoms that I do
sir.
find interesting.
During part of the Middle Ages, there were thriving empires, the Songhai Empire, the Ashanti Empire in Africa that were thriving. 1300s, the Mali Empire. You had the one of the richest people in recorded history at the time, Mansa Musa. They had the University of Timbuktu, which was the center of learning at that time in the world. Everybody in the world was coming over there to Timbuktu to learn. So they were thriving over there in parts of Africa. Let's not say that. And when the black people went up there to Spain, they helped that thrive. And ultimately, they helped usher in the European Renaissance era. The Renaissance era came from the Moorish influence there. So we got to just put everything in the right context.
Okay, I can respect your opinion. I would think it was more of like
Historic fact. Historic fact.
it was more of a Greco-Roman Italian movement, in my opinion.
Oh
And
Lord,
the
Greco-Roman.
white supremacist
The
historical.
Renaissance. Wait. The Renaissance was Greco-Roman. How?
Because
What was
so
Greece doing? Greece didn't have nothing popping during the Middle Ages and Renaissance. What are
I
you
can
talking?
explain my white supremacist opinion. You can say I'm wrong. Well,
What did Greece have going on then?
so this is what it was, according to how I understand it, and you can say I'm wrong and correct me in the way you think is true. But the Renaissance, which took place in Italy, um, and then spread outwards, there was obviously the Catholic hegemony of the Dark Ages, in which there was mostly the clergy and the monks that were documenting and controlling all education and information. And that's when the Catholic Church was sort of founding the first major universities in Europe. But there was the sort of later stages of the Dark Ages, which blended into the Renaissance, in which the ideals and the aesthetics and the sort of philosophy and energy of ancient Greece and part of the Roman Empire were sort of replicated. So, what you see in the Renaissance in Europe is the painters are painting Greek heroes. These paintings of Greek heroes and these Roman heroes and stuff that you see, Achilles and the Trojan Wars and all this stuff, they were not painted in ancient times, obviously. All the great paintings from these things are from the Renaissance era, and they were sort of LARPing and dick riding ancient Greece, um, until, yeah, they were simply
Now,
trying to recapture that, like, heroic, philosophic ideal of ancient Greece. I mean, that's how I understand it.
and here's the thing: the Moors maintained a lot of ancient Egyptian and ancient Greek documents. The Moors maintained that. The Europeans, they didn't really, when the fall of Rome happened and the Dark Ages were popping in Europe, it wasn't even practical for them to have any type of knowledge like that. They were trying to eat and get the flies and ticks off of them. It was the Moors who maintained a lot of those books and those documents. That's why the Moors went up there and created universities. Songhai, they were creating the no Salamanca. I'm sorry. So all of these universities up there, that was a real big thing. Knowledge, creating libraries, teaching people, educating the people. So that was a part of the Renaissance. Also, what they would do when they were getting the Moors out because they had the Reconquista and the Europeans got all of that Moorish knowledge, and then they started to create secret societies like little Masonic lodges where they would teach all of this Moorish knowledge. That's why they wear fezzes and all of these little secret societies, and that influenced a lot of the Renaissance things as well. So just putting everything in the right context.
I can respect that. I guess I would just ask if it was like sort of an African Moorish thing that created the Renaissance. Why are they only statue? I mean, is this like a white supremacist thing? But why are all the statues Greek heroes? Why are they all like European Greek
Well, no,
heroes
they
and stuff
had to.
like
Well, this is what I'm saying. They got a lot of this information from the Moors. At the same time, the Moors were being conquered. So this is the thing. A lot of times, with when you conquer a people, you start taking all of their stuff. You take their wealth, you take their knowledge, you start taking their maps. That's another thing they did. Columbus, and they went up there to the Alhambra and start taking maps that Boabdil and all those guys had. That's why Spain was the first ones to go travel outside of Europe into the New World. So they took a lot of the knowledge, and they took Moors with them, by the way. They took some Moors that were Christianized with them. So they started taking all of this information and teaching it secretly and becoming more powerful while, black society was going on the decline. They took all of this information and then used it against us. The Moors took something up into Europe called fire sticks. They used that to celebrate, to pop explosives. The Europeans said, "Hey, damn, celebrating! We can use that to kill people." So again, things that black folks were bringing up there, the Europeans started to finesse their way around it and say, "Hey, we can weaponize this stuff and use it against these same people who brought it to us." So that's where we are now.
Yeah, I mean, if that was true, that'd be a very fascinating turn of events. But it's like, at least to my understanding, and you can correct me, but sub-Saharan Africa prior to colonization, as far as I understand it, didn't have a written language. Um, and you can say like the so if we were saying that North Africans are black, like, obviously Arabian and Arabic had become, the dominant language in North Africa. But as far as sub-Saharan Africa, I don't know of a documented sub-Saharan African written language prior to colonization. So that would just give me a point of contention to sort of, you
Yeah,
know.
they did have written languages all over Africa, but when they got, um, even in ancient Egypt, they always try to say that there was no written language. They had metanetta, they had all types of different languages all over Africa. A lot of that got destroyed when colonization came through. They destroyed a lot of that stuff, um, and declined the society. They started to devastate the society. Then there were these Arab invasions, and that was something that was devastating to a lot of the African languages there. So yeah, they had stuff going on over in Africa. And Africa is an old place. It's an old place, and societies advance and societies decline. They went in there when some of those societies were on the decline. So that's where it was.
So I think actually one of the great horrible things of colonization, um, obviously, when you look at a map of Africa, a lot of people don't understand, even Black Americans don't understand. I'm not saying all, but a lot don't understand that Africa actually has some of the most diverse uh, culture, diverse languages, and diverse sort of ethnic identities in the world, really, if not the most. There are a lot of Africans, what I'm trying to say is what happened during colonization. These arbitrary maps were drawn up. So Congo, Sudan, this country, this country. These maps were drawn in Africa, but the maps were not indicative of the actual people within Africa. So what I mean is there were a lot of Africa being extremely more diverse tribalistically. So, for example, in France, there's only, a few languages and a few cultures. There's Languedoc, and Brittany, the Celtic Brythonic language, and then the Germanics conquered France, and French became the dominant language in France,
But
but only a few. In
right,
Africa, there's
but they were
many.
Gaul at one point, and yeah, they were Gaul at one point, and there were other places up there in Europe that were speaking French. I think the Russians were speaking a form of French until a black man, Pushkin, created the modern Russian language. So um, that's another facet. We were very influential all over the world.
Yeah, but like this great travesty is sort of when they drew these arbitrary borders in Africa. Essentially, what happened was within all these countries, and it's why you see all these civil wars and all these tribal conflicts and stuff. They essentially put a bunch of tribes into one country that these tribes didn't necessarily see themselves as a single people, and these tribes obviously begun to who saw themselves as ethnically, culturally, linguistically different. They began to hate, and they began to fight with one another. And this is one of the prominent reasons there's, at least to my understanding, there's a lot of civil war in Africa these days, and that actually is a very definable point of issue in which colonization did a lot of damage to Africa.
Yeah, of course it did. Colonization was devastating on Africa and just the world because the white supremacists, look, they were up there fighting in Europe like crazy. They were going in on each other in Europe. And not only that, during that famine that they had in the 1300s, I mean, they were really going in. They were just going around eating kids and just doing all types of weird stuff. So, when people are in some kind of conflict or they go through some type of hardship, sometimes they do some extreme things. The people in Africa and the Aboriginal black people here in the Americas, once we started to encounter the white supremacists, things got a little haywire. And it's still haywire to a certain degree. And we're looking at the culprit. The culprit is the white supremacists. So we're like, we got to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice so we can start getting things back in order, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't actually, you could say it's like a white supremacist or whatever. It's like I don't even a lot of us don't want to be supreme. We don't want. I'm sure there's a lot of cunts that are that way that want to I don't know, like enslave blacks or something. But
Then
like
why did they say they wanted to be supreme? They specifically said they wanted to be supreme over black people. They created the system
yeah, yeah.
specifically to be supreme.
Yeah, yeah, and it was a horrible, wrong thing to do. But like, I think like when you look at like a modern, uh, right now, I don't think like I think the reality is like when we all are contemplating it, like we don't want to be, we don't want to reign over black people. We just want autonomy and respectful separation. Um,
Really?
that's
Separation where?
I guess that's like the real question. It's like you will see obviously
The white
blacks and
that's not
so
the white supremacists don't want to separate. They want to dominate. If you wanted to separate, you would have just stayed in Europe. So what are you talking about?
yeah, but so in the United States it was undeveloped land. There were no major cities. It was just people butt fucking buffaloes and living in fucking tents and shit. Like
No,
that's just
no,
the reality, bro.
no, that's not true.
So
When
what prominent city existed in the United States prior to English occupation?
California had prominent places, you had, well, down in Central America where some of the explorers went. They went to some cities down there. What's that explorer's name? I want to is the God damn it! I don't know if it's Balboa or Ponce de Leon. Um, one of those explorers went down into Central America and they saw a very advanced city with two-story buildings. There were several mosques there, paved streets. So they,
Pyramids too, yeah.
yeah, they saw advanced places. They did. So there were advanced places.
Well, I would say
All
North America had less development for sure. If you look at Central South America, there were actually one city had like 1 million people, I believe. And actually, I don't think a lot of people know this. In the Amazon rainforest, there's evidence of like massive structures, which are now buried under all this dirt and forest and stuff. But the Amazon rainforest actually had, they've done geothermal mapping and such, which there's these massive structures sort of buried under time, and it's proposed that sort of Spanish explorers just carried a lot of diseases from, like, the Silk Road, the whole Eastern world. All these, people had become immune through trade and such, all these diseases, but they devastated the Amazon rainforest. So, there's very interesting points to make in which, there were clearly relevant cultures in the Americas. I'm not saying that wasn't the case. I'm just saying, like, North America, it's not as much the case.
Yeah, but they did have some advanced spots and some advanced civilizations. Places like Cahokia. Some people even say the Grand Canyon had. There's evidence of some advanced civilizations there. They've been excavating and checking out. So you know, there have been people here in the Americas for years, and we went up and down the Americas. Going down into Mexico, you had the Olmec civilization, and they had advanced things going on down there. These were black people, so people were doing their thing over here in the Americas for thousands of years. When I went down into Costa Rica, I saw these ancient black artifacts down there. These people had all types of gold and precious jewelry, and they had advanced societies thousands of years ago. So it existed. Again, societies go up, societies go down. Yeah, but wasn't nothing really popping in Europe until foundational Black Americans were over here making money for the slave owners, and that's the thing that built up Europe. Europe was a crap hole until the Black people in the Western Hemisphere started to generate all of that wealth. So the wealth of Europe was built on the blacks of Black people here in America. Well, yeah, Dark.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, obviously we have like points of contention in which we disagree. Like, there's the foundational Black American sort of um, base point in which, when you look at us, when you look at our responses to your guys' opinions on this, you can say it's like we're just like conspiratorially like against it or something. But like, when we are looking at what you guys are saying, like, it's basically we're fucking laughing at it. And it's not to I'm not trying to be like disrespectful. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of things that, the FBA bros say that seems so ridiculous beyond comprehension to us. And you can, of course, say
Well, we're
like
talking about you and I talking. So people say weird shit. White supremacists say the dumbest shit all the time. That's why
100%, yeah.
they stay on 4chan trolling. But we're not talking about that. And you might have some FBA saying something reckless. Who knows? When we're talking about us, we're having an intelligent conversation, so we can bring truth to power. I'm not bringing. I'm respecting your intelligence. I'm not bringing up some of the 4chan trolls that you might interact with, because they say goofy ass stuff all the time, which is ridiculous. Um, I like to have an intelligent conversation about
Okay,
his.
wait. There's a conspiracy on on the right wingers and like 4chan people,
Hmm.
and they actually I've gone on 4chan before or whatever, but like, and they talk about you because like they kind of think you're awesome and hilarious. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, they kind of have like this actually endearing uh thing about you. Like, they kind of like you, but they have this conspiracy that you actually go on 4chan. Can you confirm or deny?
I promise you I don't. I promise you I don't. That's the last one around a bunch of nerdy white supremacists sitting in their mama's basement. That's the last group of people I want to be around. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of 4chan whatsoever. I don't want to hear outdated nigga jokes from the 80s. These people are they're not really that witty. You dig? So yeah, I don't mess with 4chan at all. You know. And I have my own platform. I'm here, and we how many people we got here now? We got almost 1,000 people in here tonight in the middle of the night. So, but anyway, dog, I think we had a good conversation. We got a lot of people on. I'm gonna let on, but anyway, man, thank you. I think the conversation was constructive.
Yeah, man, I would just say, obviously we have our disagreements, and obviously, I think the thing I would get across to you guys, before I dip out here, I,
Hi,
I don't
Hold on,
I'd
actually
like to
think.
I'd like to collaborate a little bit of what
man,
Tariq is.
hold on, hold
Hi,
on, hold on, dear, hold on, hold on. All right, I'm gonna get you in a second. Let me let him
thank
finish. Go ahead.
you.
I would just say, like, at least from our perspective, and I think I can speak for somebody in the community of like sort of the evil white supremacist menace. I would just say, like, we, at the end of the day, there's not like a there are hateful people that hate black people, but I think a lot of it just stems from this like sort of brutal friction that you know we have very different cultures, we have different skin colors, we have different uh a lot of differences, and I think there's like intense friction between us. I don't know if it's reconcilable, and I don't actually want like bad future or a bad existence for black people. I think I would actually want sort of a better future and like ascent, like going upwards direction for black people. But I think like how we see it as there's a lot of hatred towards us, there's a lot of abuses, a lot of murder, a lot of crime, a lot of animosity, a lot of horrible history.
Why
And I
would
think,
there not be animosity towards white supremacists?
of course there is. And did I own slaves? And it's like a gay conservative talking point, but it's like I haven't actually, maybe I'm benefiting or something from like being
What do
white
you mean, did
because
you own slaves? The United States government kept us in slavery. You were a part of the U.S. government.
yes, but it's like the crimes of the father kind of thing. It's like,
No, no, no. This government is still here. This government
Amen.
still this government still benefits from the resources and wealth generated from that exploitive labor that they took from us.
yeah, but
So
like us right wingers, we hate the government.
okay, what the hell is that, Louisa?
Well, I'm gonna let other people talk. You
Let me
got
let her.
you guys
Uh,
cook, Louisa.
thank you. Let me because she got sound effects going.